Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. It's starting with me and him. There's supposed to be others, but they're not here. So they're either tardy or maybe they've disconnected the internet in Wales for one of the Ians and the other Ian's out filming. I don't know, because we're expecting at least two Ians, or they might have done the time zone thing again. Who knows?
Rumor is they're stuck on question number 3 of the exam for the registration. Have been for the last 10 hours.
Well, today's the day, isn't it? Well, it's not for you. Tomorrow for you. Or yesterday was the day, is what I should say.
Yeah.
November the 5th, the UK has gone live, and Ian had a fantastic Freedom of Information request in which he found some the differentials of the prices. Basically, I can't remember now. Was it £750,000 versus £4.1 million? So well found, Ian, top notch. If he turns along, we'll talk about that in a minute. So whilst we wait for them, is it?
They have chocolate biscuits in their offices. None of these plain biscuits. If you can afford to buy the highest, you might as well buy the marshmallow ones with the chocolate coating and the raspberry jam in them.
Probably have filtered coffee as well, things like that. They might even probably even have the crusts cut off for the sandwiches when they come in, and the canapes and all the other petit fours.
There'll be a special officer who does that. That's his job. He is the head of crust cutting. Not cost cutting, but crust cutting. Yeah.
Yeah, and there'll be all sorts of health and safety issues involved with that. I probably don't run with scissors and be very careful with the knife and all that.
Knife crime is the thing.
Knife crime is the thing. Well done, you caught up with me there. That's where I was going. Apparently, that's quite dangerous. And other things. Actually, you put a post out on. I think, what did I see? YouTube? Yeah, quite a long post comparing dangers, I think, didn't you, today?
Yeah, with fireworks.
Fireworks, that was it, because it's November the 5th. That's right.
Being got 5th of November, Guy Fawkes, bonfire night, whatever you call it. In the UK, over 500 children every year are injured by fireworks. Yet children of any age can use fireworks, no registration required, no exam required to be sat. But if it's an evil, deadly 251-gram foam model, you've got to be at least 13 to sit the flyers exam. Or no, you've got to be 13 if you want to register. No, you've got to have a parent with you if you're 13. You've got to sit an online exam to show you're competent to throw a piece of foam, unlike a skyrocket or a Roman candle or something. And you can't actually own a piece of foam yourself if you're under 18 because you couldn't register as an operator. So, those damn foam things are so dangerous. Fireworks, 500 kids injured every year, nothing. That doesn't warrant any kind of restriction or control, does it? But, drones, totally different story. In the US, it's worse. In the USA, 5 people died last year as a result of the recreational use of fireworks, and 9,100 people required hospital treatment as a result of the recreational use of fireworks. But they don't have to register, and they don't have to sit an online exam such as is planned in the USA. What is wrong with the world? Anyone that tells me this is all about safety, they're dreaming. They're either deliberately trying to mislead people, or they are themselves completely misled by what they've been told. They're out of touch with reality.
I think I'm inclined to believe it's the second one of your assertions. And yeah, what is the world coming to? I'm going to put a link up. I'm going to put a link up now, and this link was sent to me earlier today by good old Greg. Was by drone, and it will take you to a CASA, Australian CAA website that will. Oh, hello. Here we go. Here's the boy. Here he comes. Here he comes himself. There he is. There he is. You're just going to move. You're going to move your head now. Now that we've badmouthed you, but I've Mr. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
He's in. That. Yeah, but I think he's always a bit blurred around the edges, isn't he? Yeah. Well done, Ian. Fantastic Freedom of Information request and result. You must have been delighted when you realised it would come in time for November the 5th.
I have a funny feeling it's been deliberately delayed because originally, obviously, it said we're not answering any of this. I mean, I put, I think, about 5 questions, most of them reasonably specific, and then one that was deliberately vague, which was the one asking what the lowest and highest bids were, because I thought, well, you can't reasonably say we can't answer that because it's giving away some privileged information, because it's not. It's very vague, and that was the only one they answered, although there's obviously that in itself looks pretty damning if we're interpreting it correct. But Yeah, I mean, for me, there's two things with the freedom of information. People say, well, this is the law. You don't have to answer these questions. But if I with a lot of organisations, you ask a reasonable question, you get an answer anyway. And it's kind of, if you're looking for ways out of it, the moment, in fact, you've got to cite the law and say, well, I'm not answering this because here I don't have to, immediately means you've got something to hide anyway, to be right honest. And that's where you kind of you get sort of two experiences using freedom of information. Sometimes people are really forthcoming and they give you more than they even need to do, and on other times you just get pushed back. So originally it was like, you're not getting any of this answered, so then you can ask for which generally it's not reasonable in most cases, and usually if you go for the internal review, you get your questions answered. So I took that approach. So I went down that route, and then they said, we're going to have to put this on hold for now. We can't answer anything because we've got the thing going on.
Thomas,
but I find it hard to believe you people that are doing your freedom of information requests are the same people that are out there doing every other job, but who knows? I do think it is slightly suspicious, though, isn't it? It comes out the very day when literally hours before the thing goes online. So it's like, well, there's no opportunity to query any of it prior to it happening. Not that it make any difference anyway, but what it suggests, looking at the figures, is they've simply said the lowest, and bearing in mind all these companies have been given exactly the same requirements, so it's exactly the same brief. So it's not that one company is giving you more stuff than another. It's the fact that you've got all those companies that are going to all deliver the same system, and some have said, well, we'll do it a lot cheaper than others. So it was like 750k, wasn't it? Which was that was more in tune with what the post office had done previously. Their system in today's money would have been just under 500k. So you could argue that actually looked the most realistic. And then at the top end, we had 4.1 million, which we've got to assume is the system because that ties in with the exact value we're told being spent. And that's the system they've gone for. And the thing that's frustrating is if it wasn't for Freedom of Information Act, you wouldn't know any of this. So people never have to answer. But I think it's good to be able to kind of bring those things out. So at least, I think somebody internally, there should be, looking, thinking, well, why have we spent so much? Why didn't we? At the end of the day, so the ARSA requirements are only to hold a database. It doesn't have to be all singing and all dancing. And as we know anyway, it isn't all singing and all dancing. It's a minimum viable product. So it just makes the whole thing highly confusing. And I'm really puzzled why there was no API in there, given organisations like FPV UK wanted it a year ago. I mean, really, someone needs it should really be getting a slap for saying, well, why wasn't this put in the requirements? Why didn't we do it anyway? Because it's not like these things add considerably to the cost. Usually, if you're dealing with a database these days, there's libraries for whichever language it's in, whether it's C, Java, Python, whatever they've written it in. There'll be libraries there. They can just grab. There'll be Stack Overflow examples if they've never even used it. You can put these things together in next to no time. So it shouldn't have added any cost to be able to have an interface where data could be injected from external organisations, or where the police could have, request electronic. Obviously, they'd have to go through further security and whatever things they have to do within the police systems. But principally getting data from A to B in this day and age, it's not a difficult thing to do from a programming perspective. So the whole cost does seem puzzling, and you saw that with the register story. You just read all the comments on there. Obviously, for all these people in the IT sector, many of them developers, saying that this price is astronomical and crazy. There's like one guy saying, frankly, I would do you a database system on a Raspberry Pi, fly it on a drone, and then have you working a prototype within 24 hours, something along those lines. But, some of those people actually genuinely believe they could actually do that, So it still raises questions. It'd be good to get, I think, really, given the cost is all being passed on. It's one thing if it was a cost that that was wholly theirs. If you're like a private company, you've got costs. Well, to be honest, your private company, you don't have to answer anyway. But If it was a cost that was wholly theirs, it'd be kind of up to them what they do with it. But given they're saying, well, we're passing this cost on entirely to the end user, the very people that don't even want the system, I think the least we deserve is a level of transparency and honesty about it, and understanding how much it is costing, and if that cost, is it going to be controlled over time, or is it just going to be allowed to, wildly increase above the rate of inflation? It's, we don't really have those answers, but I think people need to ask the questions, frankly, to be a little bit difficult, because it makes organizations think twice in future, about spending money. I mean, it's just easy to spend money when it isn't yours, and that's, unfortunately, it happens too many times with IT systems when it doesn't need to.
Yeah,
I very much got the feeling that they're leaving the door wide open to ramp those prices up, though. Sort of when I was reading through that response, it's like, oh, we're on the back foot, we've got to do this, but we're going to go ahead and the costs have to be recovered, sort of thing. And you've got to wonder, maybe they're just using a big Excel spreadsheet for the benefits of BMFA. I don't know. Remember what ICOPTA said? Or who was it? So someone put up a thing saying that the transfer of data, just send us a spreadsheet.
It was something that the CAA had actually sent out. It was on their newsletter. And I got it. I mean, it got out, I think, to everyone that's on the mailing list for the CAA, but it was right down at the bottom. So I mean, I must admit, I'd not read that far, right down to the bottom to the small print. But yeah, I mean, they've obviously got a database there. We don't know the technology because that information's it's not out there. But I don't think it'll be anything staggeringly different to what any other organisation's running. But what's been said by people who've attended the meeting with the CA since on Facebook is that what they're doing now is, so they've asked like FPV UK, BMFA to do an annual export, I think, of their entire database into Excel, and then they've got a secure FTP of sorts to transfer it. So they're arguing, oh, well, it's secure because we've got this secure FTP or whatever to send it through, but it's not secure. At any moment that data is sitting in Excel, it isn't secure, and it's not to the standards you were getting in the rest of government. In that, for example, with the NHS system, things aren't just encrypted; they're what's called pseudonymized as well, so that the names and addresses in the data, even if you were to unencrypt that and get the data, it would just be like kind of IDs. There wouldn't be actual identifiable data, and that's held in yet another separate database. And you've got to have access to all these separate databases and through various APIs to be able to put something back together again. Well, here obviously it's not. It's just going into Excel and it's being transferred. Now the problem you get is phishing attempts have been done in the past using Excel or with macros on. Apparently, the Ukrainian national grid, it was compromised partly through that. So all you have to have is, malicious macro getting the CAA, and all that data that's going into them, can then be extracted out. So, there are worries when it is on tools that are, actively targeted, and especially in light of, I'm sure it's a one-off, but in light of the fact they had a phishing attempt on email,
yes,
succeeded in compromising them on email, it doesn't fill you with total confidence when these are things again. It's the workarounds and the rushed workarounds. So I mean, hopefully it'll be all right. But you've got to say that it should have never ended up in this situation to begin with, and we've just got to hope that the data isn't compromised. It all works out at the end of the day. But either way, it's not a smooth and efficient way of doing things to have someone manually dumping out their database to Excel, FTPing that across, somebody then having to put that into the database. And there'll probably have to be something written to sort of check that all the mandatory fields and whatever's populated, so you're not being given a crap data. But yeah, that's where we are. It is just a bit, all that bit funnier with all the money that's being spent, and you're talking about workarounds at this stage. But that's where we are.
interesting to see Phil Hunter saying a good day to you there, Nicola. A little bit of good news as a result of UK election being called the pending drone bill. The Lagoon Police new powers didn't make it through Parliament. I hadn't caught that news, so that's fantastic. And I find this quite interesting in one way, in that the Brexit disruption back in 2016 and the change in Parliament that occurred then caused new lighter touch drone regulations to be shelved. So so there's quite an interesting bookmark. This is bookmarked either end by Parliament causing disruption. And then Phil suggests that this will mean there'll be no enforcement in place to deal with people not registering. If that's the case, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole enforcement thing, I really can't see it changing much to it is now. I mean, the argument is that, oh, well, with the database now, if you are misbehaving, it's all the more obvious because you haven't got a number on your drone. But having said that, it doesn't stop anyone that's been not. If you're just putting a random number on the drone, the police aren't going to know. The police, as we know, the system doesn't directly connect to it, so they're not going to know immediately anyway. So, you know, if they go across, someone could blag them and just say, oh, look, it's all legit and that. And they've got no immediate reason to think otherwise. And they're not going to go to all the trouble of, well, let's fill in the paperwork that has to be sent off to get a confirmation back to see if this person, is or isn't registered. They're only going to do that if someone's definitely, you can see they're up to no good or some incidents happen and they recover the drone afterwards. But yeah, we've all known at the outset, and I don't think anybody's in denial of the fact that people that are going to misbehave aren't on it. It's just political pressure to have put this system in place, and very few people actually want it that are in the model community or the drone community, and that's all the more reason why it should have just been covered the cost by the government. In case if you want to put this on everyone, at least pay for it. Or to have done, as we said before, it should have been. Not just all stick but carrot as well, and then they've tried to do that today. We'll say, well, we've got you fined your drone.
Right. There we are. That's exactly why we all want to sign up for £9.
That's just, frankly, it's not good enough. It's almost slightly insulting as well, because they've said, oh, well, it's I don't know, whatever number of drone users it are, but they've obviously not taken that from a big sample. So that could have been taken from a sample of 100 or 1,000 and been extrapolated then across the whole community. And I think that will probably be out of date as well, because, drones these days, they're a lot more reliable. You've got all your sensors on them. And you used to get like your GPS glitches and so on, where these days they've got a lot more redundant systems in there. It's far less likely now you're going to get a compass issue that's going to see your drone, flying off into the middle of nowhere, because there'll be a backup compass. I know with DJI, some of its products have a visual compass as well. I don't know how that works. I guess it's looking for when it's moving left to right. And so they've got various levels of redundancy. So I would question if that many people are losing it. And I would raise the issue that if someone is losing the drone, doesn't know where it is, the chances are they're not flying it within line of sight anyway, which if you are following the law, you shouldn't be in that position where you could lose it anyway.
I hope you're not suggesting that this... You're not suggesting that this Find My Drone service might be sort of a way to find a perpetrator service, that will help them then lead it on down to a prosecution, as has happened to a friend of mine via the Chirp system, which wasn't supposed to happen. And the Chirp systems opened up to drones last week or the week before, whichever it was. You're not suggesting that, are you?
Well,
they might use it for dodgy purposes.
I wasn't thinking that directly. I mean, it could be used that way, but yeah, you would be a bit. You'd surely, if you had any sense about it, you'd be a bit apprehensive if you were out of line of sight with your Mavic, it got lost, and then using this database to recover it, because the log's going to be on there and everything, and you kind of owning up to the fact. So I don't know, but I mean, either way, it's been done as a sweetener to say, well, yeah, we've got this database, but we're giving you this thing. But that, to me, that isn't enough. Really, what they should have done was register on this database, and you get this tangible benefit. For example, the 150-meter rule in the UK effectively outlaws you from flying just about anywhere. That's the reality of it. And the only reason people aren't flying and getting the shots they want is just because nobody's enforcing the laws that are there. But rather than having a silly law that's not being enforced, why not just have a sensible law? Reduce that limit down. You don't want to reduce it down to PIFCO levels, because then the PIFCOs are going to have a genuine gripe. But it should have been you're proving you're responsible. we'll do this for you to make your life that little bit easier. And that hasn't happened. Instead, we've just got this Find My Drone system. And frankly, it's garbage, really, because if your drone's lost and it's out and it's in a tree or if it's in a field, it's going to have rained. It's probably going to get, it's probably you shouldn't be flying it again after that anyway. So you're just going to get something back that's broken, and probably by the time you get it back up years later, it'll be obsolete anyway.
I just write the number of my burner phone on my planes. Just get a burner phone and write the number on it, and then people can ring and it can't be traced back to me because it's a prepaid phone and pay as you go. Easy peasy.
That's the one you use for all your other weekend activities, is it?
Yeah, that's when I'm flying at the limits of visual line of sight, not beyond, just the limits.
Well, talking about we'll keep talking about it, Ian. But we've got Nicola here, and Louis makes a very fine point in the comments there about starting a Kickstarter to find his plane. But Nicola, weren't you going to look for it on the weekend?
Yeah, I was supposed to, but then weather.
Oh, there you go. And you just told us it was the best weather since forever, had been for weeks, never been so nice.
Yeah, but it rained on Friday and it was fog all Sunday. And all Saturday. And then on Sunday, sadly, I had already other plans that I couldn't change. And during the week, the lift that goes to the top of the mountain does not work. So it's probably going to happen this weekend.
Broken legs? You got broken legs, boy.
Yeah, not really, but it's like a 6-hour walk to get up there, and really not looking forward to that.
Because you might discover that some of the parts on that thing aren't usable anymore.
If only he'd registered with the UK CAA, he'd have it back by now.
They would have found it for him. Exactly.
Yeah, certain they would have.
I was actually going to sit the test myself. I thought I might go and do the flight test and see whether it rejects me in any way. I haven't actually been through the questions. Is there anything that says you're not from the UK, you can't do this?
Shall we see? Shall we all go to, hang on, the CAA?
Are we going to do another quiz today?
I think we might be, because there's another, and I haven't thought. I should have thought about this, and why don't we do it? Why don't we do it?
What I do know is you get 16 out of 20. You can have as many attempts as you like. Effectively, it's something that you're not going to be able to fail in the end. It's just more about you've got. Well, I guess at the end of it, they could say, well, you've answered enough questions that we think you've got some competency and understanding of air law, and I guess it's a tick a box to say, well, we've done it.
What is it they say about a room full of chimpanzees and typewriters, or monkeys and typewriters?
well, that is us. Yes, you could be right. Right. Well, let's have a. Shall we have a go? Are we all? Are we? Shall we have a little look and see what's there? There we are.
This is very cool.
Right then. So, you need to register to get a flight. I've got to look over my camera. That's not. It's bad planning on my part. So, is this the one up here?
Got an email address there? You need an email address.
I think I've got one of those. All right, let's just click that and see what happens there. Beta. What do you mean beta?
What do you expect for 4.2 million quid?
Am I in the right place, Ian?
Well, you must be. I mean,
that's it. See that little menu? It's one of those ones on that menu.
I don't know what you're surprised about. Google has been in beta ever since it was created. So, yeah.
Okay.
Gmail too.
So, click that one to register and take the test.
You go back up the top. There's a menu option.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right then. Oh no. I'm going to fail.
No
then they're going to have it on record. Oh, no.
Are you 18?
Well, in some ways, in other ways, not.
It's all right. We can look over his shoulder.
Okay, good. You must drone model aircraft code. Let's just guess that. Being responsible. Right. Well, let's just start now. Oh, I've got to pay £9.
No, not if you're just doing a flight test. That's for operators.
Sorry?
Hopefully you won't need to do that to the end, so you'll get away without doing it.
But if
Oh,
it's
right.
you're doing the operator thing, if the flight test doesn't require any payment.
All right. Let's
I
get
mean,
me
the
unique
knowledge
code.
test.
Right, here's me unique code. All right. Nobody look. Where do I register that? Or where do I put that? I'll put that over here. Right then. What do we want to be responsible for then? I guess we should want to be responsible for drones, I suppose.
Well, for now, just put someone else who will be responsible. So you just have to.
Yeah, because you don't. That'll take you to the operators otherwise. Yeah.
Start the
All right.
test.
Start the test. When you come from an airport, well, surely they're going to want always there, aren't they? What do we think, team? Yeah.
Well,
What you not
I
saying
wonder
there?
one because the always is a bit vague, isn't it? That's the trouble. Is though some of these they can be taken. They can be interpreted more than one way.
You're going to need a permission of some sort, aren't you? Be it the airfield's closed and you know that because and they're sort of before you've read it, or well, let's just see, shall we? We can always fail.
Yeah, no, I guess. Yeah, I guess you put.
Let's not overthink this. Let's have the thoughts of a 13-year-old child and see how we get on.
Oh, 3 friends have hiked. Oh, this is one for you, Nicola. 3 friends have hiked 6 hours to find a drone that they flew BV lost miles and miles and miles away. No, stand up the hill. 400 feet is still the thing, huh? It's 120 meters, isn't it?
I suppose.
So that they can fly 120 meters above them, can't they?
Yeah, I think so.
Ian's being very coy about this. Flying out the countryside. There's lots of people around. You must be at a festival.
Countries. Well, depends in which country you are. I mean, UK countryside is pretty densely populated.
That's got to be number 1 on this one, hasn't it?
I want to fly. No, I want to fly towards the air ambulance and get a really banging video of it in operation.
Just take more drugs. Take more drugs. That's what we do at festivals.
Take more drugs.
You mean the ambulance chopper, don't you?
Yeah, it's got to be that, isn't it? Can't be anything else. Oh, I can't see it. I'll do viewers' questions. How many ELs by drone? How are you doing, mate? We've mentioned you.
This is a funny question as well, because this is one of the things where it often gets people into trouble, is updating the firmware immediately. So I find it kind of odd advice, this of always giving going to the latest firmware. Really what it should be is read the release notes, understand what's in there, and if there's a critical bug fix you need,
and never update.
But if it's just fluff that could introduce a bug, then why would you put it on?
If it works, don't fix it is the rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Well, that Phantom 3 Pros never had a firmware update.
So it's obviously the last one there, but this one's again with
it has to be that one, isn't it? But it wouldn't necessarily. I wonder, is there a correlation with that in the real world? For like, do you what else do you update your firm? Well, bloody Windows 10. My headset's clicking on and off here because it's got some sort of conflict with my microphone here, so it's not working how the operator intended it, how Microsoft intended right now. But what other correlation there is in life about updating stuff and having to? Is there one?
Well, no, even many corporates don't update their computer software immediately. They'll leave it several months.
I think it, and I think the answer is missing here, but the first one. Yeah. And also and also so you can get the latest no-fly zones and flight restrictions and whatever.
Maybe. All right, you're flying a drone.
No, it's not a maybe. It's not a maybe. That's a fact.
No. You start to get worried. You're drone in the glare of the winter sun.
That test is misleading and therefore invalid.
Land immediately as soon as your drone goes out of sight. What the heck?
That's ridiculous. Mash the return to home button. That should be on there.
Mash the return. Okay, I'll make a note of that. Mash the return home button.
This is crazy. Shouldn't it be, why is it unadvisable to fly into the sun? Because your propellers will move.
Thank you,
this
Icarus.
is long bows. These are not situations that it's not well presented. I don't like this. They get a fail for this test.
Well, what do we think they want us to
It's
answer?
got the top one, hasn't it?
Yes, I think that's what they want us to answer. But
Yeah,
is this
I agree with Bruce. For most people, it'd be a case of them pressing.
is this really a question?
If you've got the sun in your eyes, you might not be able to see it clearly enough to fly it steadily back.
Let's do that and see how we go.
Sorry. Are we considering that you're flying the drone FPV or line of sight? Because most have flown FPV, so really doesn't matter where the sun is.
That's a very valid point. You could be flying from your tablet. You could continue to, the area well. There's no reason that you have to have it.
We observer. No, somebody would have to. Somebody would have to, and surely an observer would have to.
That's your observer's role to go blind looking at the sun.
Okay, yes. You go through 17 observers, blinding them. Yes, fair enough. All right. So, what do they want here? Well, obviously, they want payment for being filmed.
I think technically, well, it depends, doesn't it? They can demand to see what you've recorded if you're a business, because they could use the data protection, which really isn't an air question anyway. It's a data protection question. I mean, number two is definitely true there, but I guess number one's up for argument because I don't know how that works with a private individual.
The thing is, if they're in a public place, there's no expectation of privacy. None of those count.
Yeah, I mean, It doesn't even say if it's a public place, but yeah, if it's a public place, there's an expectation that people will be caught with it. But I'd probably be more inclined to say B for what it's asking. What the
I know that's the thing where they're driving us. But again, question 6. Max, why is his drone behind it? What's your rule in New Zealand?
Max is a dickhead. I wouldn't fly with Max. He's a reckless person. He's like Tim. The fact they've used Max as an example just shows this how bad this is.
A shielded operation. Behind a group, so it's trying to say safe.
Because you've got a row of trees protecting you from being hit by the drone. It's perfectly safe.
Yeah, that's right. Shielded operation. Well done, Max. You're thinking in the New Zealand way. Top man.
But no, this one's definitely the top one.
Again, if it's FPV.
No, because you observe someone's got to have sight of it. But
he knows. You can see you can see there's no full-size aircraft there. I mean, look at me. Full-size aircraft behind the trees are there.
Who knows? To be friends about how they watch the drones when flying. Which one is flying safely?
Well,
who the hell flies anything line of sight behind trees, tall trees? What kind of idiots is this aimed at?
I always hated Christina at school. She always was a girly swap.
That's Drone Girl's name, isn't it? Christina? They're picking on her. She's Irish. She's not even included in this, is she?
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes, that one. I remembered. Forgotten her. It's got to be that one.
How can that number 3 be on there when apparently everyone says at Gatwick that binoculars and any type of
yes, you're right. It didn't work. Yeah, that's right.
It'd be invisible.
That's right.
What I'm worried about is men are unreasonably represented. There's only one man and 2 women. This is sexist.
Yep. Get used to it. This is where the world is going.
Which of the following is one of the points you check to make sure you fly legally at a location? Local bylaws, not to fly there. No trees. Yeah, no, can't fly if there's trees. Sorry, say again?
It's the first one again.
But does bylaws control the airspace? They can't control airspace bylaws, can they?
Well, it's not flying over. It's for takeoff and landing.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It says flying. It doesn't say where you can take off or land. It says
yes.
Can you legally fly? So this is technically it's incorrect.
Oh no, I agree with you. It should be elaborated on, but I bet that's the answer. The after.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm wondering though, is it bylaws with an E on for the English spelling? I always thought it was without. Just
Yeah, could have been. Well, which is the main reason for not flying above 400 feet? Most of us fly above. Possible to control your drone? Yes, that's right. Because it's cooler at that height, and you're driving on one aircraft.
It's much cooler to fly high, eh, Nicola? You think it's really cool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nicola knows that. Well, I think we know what I should have been. Well, I can look afterwards. But
Actually, judging from experience, most of the aircraft do not fly above 120 meters. In fact, they fly 10 meters above the ground, so I feel safer flying 2 kilometers high.
Look at this. This is the paparazzi question. She's accidentally recorded some video through a neighbour's window. Heavens
Seriously,
above.
what was she doing?
Hello, Ian. Sorry.
Right.
I've added you.
Sorry. First of all, I've been trapped at a firework display, and secondly, I completely missed the fact we're a bloody hour earlier this week because of the changing clocks.
The old time zone excuse. I think it's a bit weak on the third week.
I come up half an hour early, and I thought, half an hour early, I'll get on now. We're looking, and then looked at the link and went, hold on a minute, 9 o'clock.
But in Wales, isn't it actually 1952?
Still 1952. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. Look, you've distracted me. Look, we're on question 11. And
well,
this is
missing off here. What she clearly should do is she should dob herself into the police, make sure the handcuff, because frankly, she must have been within 50 meters. If she's getting an image inside of the front room, someone's house, she shouldn't be recording.
Yes,
No, she should upload it to YouTube.
Or Pornhub, depending on the content.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, I was going to add that.
That's the demonetization.
Well, of course.
You've been here long, haven't you, Ian? We got demonetized right at the beginning.
36 minutes.
One here, isn't it? Because it's saying here you can share it provided you delete the parts with the neighbour in it.
Yep.
All right then. That's another first answer. I guess. 3 friends. Why? It's been 3 friends every time, hasn't it? It's only because there's only 3 responses in each one.
Ruth and Christina here.
Robin, Scott, and Ben. 3 friends are talking about their drone while they fly an empty field near an airport. Fields outside the fence.
One here, hasn't it? It's got to be Ben.
I need to check this. I haven't done it myself yet. The new one.
Beat Ben. Outside the airport boundary.
Yeah, Ben.
Ben, yeah. See, no, it's mad. I wonder how long they came up with all these different names, because there's loads of names.
Matt Timmer.
And where's Rafe? Where's Rafe? I haven't seen Rafe on this.
Or Brad.
Race. They're not the sort of people that would fly drones, are they? I don't think there's any Rafe or Brads. I think you have to look in all our things. There's very, very few of them. Matt, Tim, and Rory. I actually do know a Matt, Tim, and Rory that would fly drones. But anyway, are an organised music festival for over 2,000 people. Oh, this is the old. This even applies to manned aviation, because stay away from it. 2,000 people is the magic number. So Rory walks along the public road, 150 meters away.
I think on here.
35 meters. Where's that come from?
The first one, although people would argue, well, the public footpath isn't somewhere you should be taking off from, and if he's in the field, he still doesn't have the permission to be using that field to take off a land anyway.
I don't know if this is safe. I'm sure half of these people are going to end up in a canal all this walking.
I think it's the funny because I had a look at the beta one before it came out, and the problem I found with it, and it very much is the same again, is they're far more interested in concentrating on legislation in the tests than they are genuine drone safety. There's very few questions that are around actual drone safety or aircraft safety, and further to that, the ones that were, I wasn't happy with the answers with anyway, because personally the answers they were saying weren't what I felt was the right thing to do either.
That's kind of the consensus we're coming to.
Yeah.
So what is the answer to this one? They're mentioning. I don't remember
Rory,
hearing
isn't
about
it?
I'm guessing it's the top one because for takeoff and landing, you've got 30 meters, so he's given an extra 5 meters.
Okay.
150 meter away from the crowd. But I still think if you were arguing this, you would say, well, there'd be people that would definitely say this is still not right.
Yeah, it's funny actually because this comes up a lot on the PFCO groups, doesn't it, Ian? This whole where I get to take off and land thing, and there are two schools of thought. You got two guys. You got one set of operators and pilots who are willing to say, if it's public land, as far as I'm concerned, I have consent unless I'm specifically told I don't. And you have the other side of it that says you need to ask for written permission before taking off any piece of land. Now, you have to be sensible with this. At the end of the day, there's nothing in bylaws that says you're not allowed to fly on it. If the council say, most councils I've noticed have put saying open land they're fairly happy with, but I think it's got to be the top one, isn't it?
I've had, but they're my concern. But it starts flying away from people out walking. Well, if they're on the same footpath, how far are they? That's the bit. But anyway, I'm all right. Let's just do that because it's getting boring, isn't it? So 13. I think that might be off there. So never fly higher than.
It's 400 feet again, isn't it?
It is feet.
It is 400 feet. Yeah.
Why are they mixing? Why are they mixing units there?
The problem is we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think unfortunately we do within it in the UK. I don't think we help ourselves on that one.
We've got distances away from things and meters, and then
and then height.
Yeah.
But it's genuine. It's accepted aviation standard, isn't it? So,
how would you check if there are restrictions? I'd look on the BBC app, on local news, all those things. I wouldn't look on any sort of app.
Can't we just have look on any app as long as it's not AirMap because they're evil?
Yeah. Well, yes, because you might actually end up having better information from your local newspaper or the BBC than a random app. Surely they should be recommending their own app here, shouldn't they?
They should. I don't.
And what if you don't have a phone? What if you don't have a phone? Like my phone doesn't do data. I mean, does that mean I can't fly?
However, actually, it isn't their app, is it? That's the thing we've got to remember. It's NATS, and NATS is technically not fully.
Oh yes.
So
you're right, Ian. You're right. It pains me to say that, but you're right. Yeah, I don't like that question. 15. I don't like that at all because that's too ambiguous.
And you don't want to look up BBC website because it'd be full of anti-drone propaganda.
Yeah, that's right. The BBC says no. Nick's out flying now. When it starts to snow, it must be Christmas. Oh, that's nice. We've got a Christmas question in here. Well, this is other people. Well, yeah, because a lot of them are white, so you wouldn't be able to see them, would you?
Nope.
To be honest, it shouldn't even be this about view because the snow hits it, it melts. It could just damage the drone. It could fall out of the sky. Surely that's consideration.
I specifically complained about this question when I saw it, and it was, why is this there? What possible reason? You could say the weather turns bad, but why snow? Why choose a specific?
But it's suggesting
because it's low.
No.
Yeah,
This is actually really good because if you look at Canada, you cannot allowed to fly in the snow because of ice buildup. If you have ice on your craft, you're not allowed to fly it. So this is how the different governments have completely different perspectives on things, and they don't agree. So how can anyone be right?
Well, quite honestly, I don't know what the right answer is.
I'd say 3.
Third one on this. It really is, and it's a wrong answer.
It is. It's.
Well, it's getting combined up. But why can't you use a controller? And which part in our training?
Because he's about batteries. Get cold. They just stop working altogether.
Yeah.
And can't fly.
Hang on a minute. Isn't this going to encourage unsafe behaviour? Because I'm pretty sure that Nick is going to get in his car and fly it sitting in there with a heater on by FPV, and he won't be line of sight.
Yeah, you've flown with Nick before, haven't you? Well, let's go for that one. But but then that implies that you've been taught about Frankie. Jesus, run away full payment. Well, what must you do?
It's the middle one.
The middle one.
Depends what the payment is.
But
And
I don't
another
know.
woman too. I've never seen this many women flying drones before. Is it a UK thing? Mostly women are very small representation in the hobby.
Well, we do actually have a fair few in the UK, on social media especially.
Is there something about more than 100?
trendy.
Is there something about more than 100 people at a show? I don't think there is there? And it's not 150 meters because you can't do that because that's too high.
We have to phrase a gathering of people.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Oh, they're implying that it's the middle one, aren't they? Because it's a crowd of what is it, 1,000 or whatever before
it is. Yeah, and that's why they stick in that 150 in the top question to try and catch you out. Yeah, it's number 2.
Is Amin a Muslim name? Are they worried with these flying so close to a crowd with a drone? What's going on?
How many times can you demonetize a single video? Are you demonetizing?
I think they're just profiling here. This is unacceptable.
So what are you saying? Number 2?
Number 2.
Yeah.
Whose name is this one in? Yours, Gar, is it? Is this yours?
Yeah.
I haven't done mine yet.
Well, I can see what that one is.
It's the last one.
Yeah.
Although, really, the way we should have it is of all the things that we said before, that should have been mandated. It should have been insurance rather than anything else.
Yeah. And
you would have got a database of people by doing that.
Just bring in nine quid's worth of insurance or 16.50 worth of mandatory insurance.
But the problem is, if you look at the insurance claims records, you realise, oh my God, no one's claiming it's incredibly safe. Our scam we've been rumbled. You know, it's not as dangerous as we say it is because the insurance companies aren't getting claims.
Yep.
Well, it can only be one there, isn't it?
Yes.
It depends what aircraft I'm flying. That all of them can apply depending on the aircraft.
Yeah, but that's always in aviation.
Yeah.
That's always
It's
got to have.
given, innit?
I'm a bit nervous now. How many do you think we've got?
I think
It's
16 or so.
definitely a fluff one, but anyway.
We aced it, mate. We aced the whole thing.
It's 20 out of 20. I took the
20
entire
out of 20.
test. My win. Whereas if we fail, it's you lot's fault. So just so we're clear on the rules here. Here we go then. 19 out of 20.
Yay! Oh, it was just that one Jerry answer we got wrong.
I told you!
Which one was that? I can't remember.
The first one, the airport.
I thought I got. Oh well. All right. Never mind.
You guys did always.
All right. Fire ID.
Overly cautious on that one.
Overly cautious. I'm gonna stop sharing now because obviously I don't want to.
So let's give this to Nicola, shall we? Put Nicola's name
in.
Yeah, he'll break all of them in his first flight. Don't worry about that. That's
well, there we are. If you are considering doing the test in the UK, I believe there's only a question bank of 20 questions. Yeah. So those
you just copy our answers, except number 1.
Yeah, don't copy your answer for number 1.
Now, obviously, I missed the start. I don't know. Have we explained at all what people have to or don't have to do right now? Because it's an interesting subject, and the reality is, no one has to do anything today.
Well, hang on. Let me also
or tomorrow or any other day.
Have a look at Phil Hunter's comment from earlier, Ian.
Yeah. Oh, the other Ian as well. But yeah, I've not looked at that either. I think this is quite interesting because the police powers actually are more worrying than the drone.
This is more worrying than anything else. And I know everyone says, well, I'm a law-abiding citizen, I haven't got anything to worry about, etc., etc. But this little bit of stop and search is going to be, not stop and search, but search powers being increased is going to really put the cat amongst.
That was in the document that we went over quite some time ago, wasn't it, Ian? All of this, and the problem with this was that if they had reasonable suspicion, they could confiscate your gear, they could go through your footage, and they would have the ability to issue on-the-spot fines as well, with with no real grounding of aircraft law. And that was my biggest issue with it. You know, someone turns up and says, you're breaking the rules. As far as I'm concerned, I'm issuing you a fine. And you're going, hold on a minute. You know, I know the A&O. I know what I'm doing is legit. And you've got no recourse on that either, you know.
Yeah, I'm that's my biggest worry about the whole thing. I know the money going down. Well, how many people? Well, I know at least one person's taken. Well, or 5 of us have taken it. How many people do we think has taken it then?
I think
today.
I think quite a lot, but it's difficult to tell because everyone that's done it has posted online. They say, look at me, I've done it. And at first, there were people putting their IDs on there. And to say, you do realise by posting your ID on this, anyone that's going to do mischief, we're just going to copy your number down and do it. And you're gone and get kicked down.
They all woke up then.
Yeah, then stop doing it.
I did laugh at your Twitter post on that earlier.
Has there been a definitive ruling about this whole situation where the 13-year-old kid gets his flight thing, does the test, has a drone, but there's no operator for that drone because the kid bought it with his own money and the parents don't want to know? What is the legal situation?
You shooting people again, Ian?
I've got obviously some overly zealous neighbours with the fireworks. But...
Oh, of course it's not.
Yeah.
I thought they'd just gone to bed.
This is the thing, you see. It's not drones that are the bloody menace. It's fucking fireworks.
Yeah. Right, that's a point. Right. Originally, it said someone had to register. However, I've not seen that wording again today. Has it changed, or is it still there?
Look, this is called it's called my confirm my flying responsibilities. I thought I'd just share that. And I'll do that.
In the original paperwork, it stated that, and the original plan was the parent would have to do it. If no one was willing to do that, then technically that person couldn't fly. There's no age limit on taking the test. So the test, if you're under 13, you have to have an adult with you whilst doing it, but you can still take the online test. But with regards to the the operator ID, you must be 18 years or older.
Yeah. That's my point, though. If you're 16 and you've bought a drone with your own money, and there's no one willing to become the operator, but you've got a flyer ID and you go out and fly, you shouldn't be you've done your obligation as the flyer. You're not an operator, so you shouldn't have to register as an operator. The craft has no operator. That's not your problem. You've done your part as the flyer. So what happened? You can't legally become the operator at 16. So I think that's a giant loophole they're going to have to fix up.
They'll just confiscate the drone, smash it, and then poor kid won't do it again.
Do the person up. Yeah. Originally, it said it had to be an adult. I haven't seen that today. Funny enough, you mentioned it, Bruce. I need to. The problem is they refer back to the law that they've introduced as part of this. So I'll need to go back and have a look if it's in there, because that's what they're referring to, which is 94D. Is it as part of the A&O? I can't remember. I'll have to have a look. Let me have a look.
Well, it's not the questions aren't going to be too onerous for people, as we can see. I'm not overly convinced that they're relevant or have increased people's safety. And the
interesting thing is, as I think Ian quite rightly pointed out earlier, everyone's rushed out to do this today. Doing the flyer ID today is fine. That will last you 3 years. At the end of the day, there's no issues doing that today. But drone registration doesn't kick in until the 30th of November. You give them £9 today, you will be virtually a full month registering without having need to. So next year, you're going to have to register a month early. So anyone who's looking at doing this, wait until the end of the month. But if you're a BMFA, FPV UK, Scottish Modelers Association, or a RPAS member, you do not need to do nothing until the end of January 2020. So
and I think that's the same with Drone Safe Register, because I think they've gone that route as well, haven't they?
Yeah. Anyone on those organizations.
They get on, because they were a bit miffed that they weren't allowed to be part of this process.
I don't know 100%, but I thought it was the fact that they were getting miffed that this got pushed out to January anyway, to give them a chance to get involved as well.
Yeah. and it's thing. So you're seeing a lot of people run out, but again, BMFA members, you don't have to do nothing today. Don't rush out to do anything right now.
Don't have to do anything. That's a double negative.
He was trying to slip that through, man. Because I would say to people, don't register. There's no enforcement, and the only time these ridiculous rules become effective is if you follow them. Following them is voluntary. There's nothing to compel you. It's all the only reason that the regulatory framework works is because of voluntary compliance. If you don't give them that, they have no power over you.
And it is worth adding, but many people don't fly the drones over the winter period anyway. So I think it's bonkers where people going out and spending this money, and it's just going to be sat on the shelf for winter. So leave it to the summer. And I think that's a good little protest means as well. Saving you a little bit of cash, or just say sod it and go out and buy the Mavic Mini and enjoy that, and for as long as you want.
The more videos I see of that, or the more I hear about that, the more I think I do want to go out and get one anyway. It looks like quite a tidy little bit of kit, that.
All the reports have been good so far. It'll be interesting to see. We'll know it's in people's hands today. I know of at least 40 people from dealers who shipped it. Dealers have had the hardware already. The hardware is there, but the app doesn't hit the store until the 11th of November. But there are pictures of people coming up online with the aircraft in their hands now. I believe the hardware went out a bit earlier with dealers than it should have. DJI haven't shipped, but some dealers in the US have. People have had their hands on them a little earlier than they should, but they can't fly them 100% right now. But yeah, and it's this, don't rush out to do it. At the end of the day, there's a lot that at play here that we still don't fully understand. Okay, the PFCOs have a waiver for the flight test, which I'm not going to use because I have to carry that document with me. And there is a question mark if that document covers you if you're flying as a hobby operator, not a commercial operator. So it's not worth having at the end of the day. But this sub 250 gram is worth a look. And as Louis just mentioned, there's a 199 gram version. Aircraft is 148 or 149 grams. There's two batteries, one at 50 grams for Japan.
Drop a battery.
And a lighter battery and then a heavier battery for the rest of the world. There's been some confusion. Some people have been saying that DJI were misleading in the advertising because they were saying the flight time was based on the lower battery, and that is not true. The weight is 249 grams with the up to 30 minutes battery life with the big battery.
No. Again. That's like welcome to South Africa. We have that all the time, all year round.
That is absolutely just bang outside the door.
Oh bloody hell! But
at least knife crime is quieter.
It is, and it's interesting. But the one point I've been making to guys all day, and you don't have to do this today. The only thing I wanted to mention a little bit on with this is the insurance thing, because people should be careful on this. I've seen a couple of questions to Simon Dale, FPV UK, and the BFMA have sort of answered this, that as far as everyone seems to be concerned, they expect their members to be insured even if they choose not to register and fly. I personally am not comfortable with that. I wouldn't want to be the person who has to test that court case, put it that way.
Yeah, I know FPV UK specifically said that. Definitely don't have to be registered, but yeah, you do worry about that if it ever came to an expensive claim. That'll probably be the first time they try and wangle the way out of it.
I think it also puts you in potentially dodgy water in front of a judge. Let's be honest. If you're going to stand in front of a judge and say, it wasn't my fault, it fell out of the sky and hit that person, you're not cooperating with the law at the end of the day, regardless if we like this or not. And me and Ian have certainly said our bit on this with regards to the Drone Offenders Register and everything else. However, the reality is this is law. And if you're going to look at this from a compliance point of view and you rely on that insurance, I would strongly suggest registering. I know Bruce would say differently.
Speed limits are the law too, but how many can honestly say they've never broken one?
No. I've recently done a course.
On my back. Did I
You are.
return? Oh, that's
It's-
good.
And it is dodgy ground, you know. So if you are going to have that protest vote, you know, I'm with you there, but just understand if something goes wrong, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way to protest on this is to protest legally.
Yeah.
And ground your drone and don't register for now, or you know, go over to RC cars or something for the time being, or get yourself something that's the 250 and do it that way. I think that's the best way to do it. Don't go out flying your Mavic and say,
Yep.
well, you know, sod it, I'm not registering, because eventually somebody will be made an example of anyway. It's bound to happen.
Yeah. And it is interesting, you know, this 250 thing is caused quite a stir this week, to say the least. You're getting there's a lot of talk that whether the FAA are going to look at making changes within the new EU regs. It's already covered. The reality is you would still have to register the Mavic Mini.
But will you? Because those regs seem to say that if it's more than 250 grams, or if it's got a personal data capture device or something, wasn't it?
Yes, it is.
So if you're flying with that an SD card and you're not recording on your phone, it doesn't have any capture at all. It's just a remote video system. It's not capturing anything in terms of archiving or storaging. So you could argue that case. Also, it says if it's a toy, it's exempt. If it's exempt,
does it have to be able to capture, or is not the act of you looking at a display and seeing something? Are you not capturing data?
In that case, when you look at anything, you're capturing data. Everything's capturing data. When you're looking visual line of sight, you're capturing data that your drone can see because you can see your drone. So the other thing is, if it's a toy. Now, who defines what a toy is? If you buy a Mavic Mini and you fly it just for fun, it's a toy. It's a toy. It's not like you're getting any commercial use out of it or anything. It becomes a toy. So I think you could have some good arguments there to say that it is still going to be exempted. In fact, I would just keep flying it, and if they took me to court, I'd love to have my day in front of a judge and explain this stupidity. This would be a week. He'd be saying, you're dismissed because I can't take any more of this rubbish.
You'd never want to be in court with Bruce, would you? It'd be a nightmare.
No,
He'd be.
I
will just mention one thing on that Bruce mentioned. With regards to defining a toy the EU have, I haven't read it because I started looking at it, and it's like any EU document about that deep. It was the other hand there. It's about that deep, and it went on forever. But UK, you know, for non-commercial operation in the UK, you do not have to register this. In the US, for the most part, that is the same as well. But will it change? A lot of people have said DJI have sort of given the regulators a bit of a finger on this one.
I don't agree with that.
No, I don't
agree. I don't like that sort of assertion. I think that, you know, that was the carve out that the Danish started with, that 250 gram gig, and that's where it came from. And DJI, we've been saying it for months, haven't we? We've all been saying 249 is going to be where it's at. And
that's what I did in my video. In my video, I pointed out that you know, regulators are probably going to come back and review the whole situation, and it's going to betray the dishonesty they've used to say it's all about safety. Because just because DJI releases a Mavic Mini doesn't suddenly make 250 grams far more damaging to aircraft and people. It doesn't at all. So then they have to stand back and say, yeah, we lied about the safety thing. It's actually about security and privacy and whatever. In which case we can tell them, well, you can stick that right where the sun doesn't shine. We're not having any of it.
You know, as you say, look, we've had race drones. There's quads and things out there below 250 grams everywhere. These guys have probably most of the FPV UK members are flying sub that weight craft half the time. So as you say, it's not about the numbers of aircraft out there or the type of aircraft that are capable of. What it'll be interesting to see is if they decide when a big manufacturer gets involved, does that for them suddenly make them uncomfortable? And as Bruce said, that suddenly every argument they've had, because it's all been sub 250, don't say it's safe, it's not going to hurt anyone, the impact involved is too low, it's all okay. But if we're going to chuck out, because I can see them selling, I don't know how many numbers they'll sell, but they will sell scary numbers of this aircraft.
Yeah, you know? The price is right, and probably the feature list is good enough for 99% of people. It's all good. Price is right, features good. It's all good.
And you can see why DJI have been so happy with the registration systems that are going into the various countries, because it's given them a niche that they can just really exploit and make a fortune. Just as the regular drone market was drying up because everyone's got a Mavic or a Phantom, now they've opened up a whole new market and everyone's got to buy new gear. They've played the regulators right down the line, and they're going to reap the benefits.
Yeah. Now, should you be unhappy about drone operations or operations near you and your airport and you live in Australia, here's this handy dandy that's been up there for a while, drone signage sign-up form from the Australian government, from their CAS, and Greg, Oz by Drone. He sent this on to me. So thanks, Greg. Top notch. So let us go down here. And you can, now I'm looking around the corner, drones, signage.
Park their land and say you're not flying your drone here.
Well, of course, remember, you'll need to sign up for it. So what you'll need to do, because you can't put that sign up unless you have permission from CASA to do it, is you'll have to put your name and address and everything in there, and then they'll send you your modified sign. I mean, that's wonderful, isn't it, really? Look, you can put your reason for your no drone zone there.
Can you
great, eh?
Residential property?
I guess you could if it's within...
If they're residential as well, don't they?
Well, yeah, it's just there on CASA. I think I'll put it on there. I'll put the link in the comments again. But I was just surprised by that. So thanks for that one, Greg. That was very interesting. There we are. Put it in the comments.
It does worry me with those kind of things, because that reminds me of when I think it was it was the people involved in AirMap and an earlier guys when they tried to do a personalized no-fly zone where you could put an address in.
Yes, that's right.
There was a website, was there not, in the UK?
Well, there's one in the US. They made another push for it about a month ago. They made another push for doing that again, to have airspace over your house.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's about making these companies money from saying we'll hold the data for these places that aren't no-fly zones. It's nothing about safety at all. It's about trying to get some more coin out of the airspace.
Did I read something?
Yeah.
Did I read that in the USA they're talking about revising who owns the first 150 foot of airspace?
Yeah, that's what it's for. It's for that airspaceaboveyou.com. Whatever it's going to be. That's exactly what it's for again.
See, on the flip side of this, I wouldn't mind if they did allow it, because does that mean I could fly in my garden without any permissions? That'd be interesting. Does it mean then, because if you own the airspace above you,
we've all not got gardens the size of the other
tiny,
so you can't tropical gardens with multiple features. But it's just 15 foot by 15 foot and 120 meters tall. It's going to be fabulous flying that.
Says Mr. Vertiport, South Africa.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I've been chopping down more trees actually. But anyway, what was I going to say? I was going to say that send that link to Gatwick. What with the police powers thing, winding the clock back to that which we mentioned earlier. I was intrigued to see, or reminded myself today when I mentioned that to someone and posted a link, that was what was used. That was exactly what was used when they were talking about those powers, was to stop another Gatwick issue, and that's got to stop being part of the narrative, especially as again Ian mentioned earlier, this crazy idea that they were so fast nobody could film them.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
There was quite the Twitter conversation, wasn't there, Ian, going on a couple of days ago on this, which you indicated.
Just out of interest, did any of you watch the evidence from the Chief Constable?
I didn't watch that, but I looked for it. I thought it was going to be in that parliamentary session. I couldn't find it. But did you find it?
I couldn't download the video at the time, so maybe it's a parliament video, but it lets you download the MP3. So I listened to it. So maybe we should do that on another show. But yes, it is basically very unconvincing. He was questioned. Said, don't you think it's a bit strange that there's no video or photographic evidence? And they have said there is none. There's people that keeps trying to vested interest usually in public counter UAS that are always on your Twitter and that going, oh, but the police must have the evidence. They're just keeping it secret because none of you can be trusted to know about it.
Yeah.
It's sort of. These police are totally incompetent by it, and they would release it just to justify the fact that they haven't been if they had any such evidence. But he quite plainly said, no, we don't have any video or photographic evidence. We just have our trusted 100 or so witnesses, none of them that have probably ever flown a drone or could actually argue drone expert to identify them, but clearly they can't, because no one said, well, it's a hex or it's a quad and it was this color and it was this brand. So they clearly haven't been able to identify it. And his argument was, just so fast, I'm not surprised anyone got any video of it. And it's like, well, how do we film Formula One cars? Whatever else. Football matches, when the football's being kicked, how do you get a photo of that then? It's high shutter speed. Bodies with high ISO, so you can have a high shutter speed and still get an image. All the technology's there, and it's just nonsense. But then his argument was, the way he tried to put this argument across, well, it's try getting a drone with a phone that's half a mile away. Try getting that video. And I'm there going, try seeing that with your eyes and saying But that was his argument, and no one there has got the nous to even cross-examine him and say, wait a minute, you can't use that argument, because that's the same argument that says you couldn't have ID'd that positively as a drone. You've just seen a light, and if it's up in the sky, copter plane, whatever, and you've misrecorded that. But so that his evidence was no more compelling than that, but it probably is worth listening and jotting it down, and probably just give it a bit more of a just a bit more of a commentary to see if anything else comes out of it. But I wasn't impressed, especially when people on Twitter are going, well, the chief constable says so, it's got to be true. And I'm just thinking, when the police have made a serious incident happen where the police are culpable, it's never owned up to. It's always, well, we will, I'll have the back of my officers, and I will argue that, all you have to do is to Hillsborough, the very fact of the way the police look at ranks and protect themselves when they haven't got something right. So to say that because you've got a police constable saying, well, it's his view, who has no expertise on drones, no expertise, I doubt, on counter UAS or for using camera gear, he should just keep being an expert at what he's an expert at, but not pretending he's he's the one-all knowledge of source on drones and camera gear that could have photographed anything were it there.
It's interesting because Ian's probably noticed this. There's clearly a movement on Twitter and within certain circles of security industry to be playing up Gatwick. Yeah. And what is interesting is that they seem to think they're dealing with idiots. And it was a point that I put across to one of them this week, the one Ian was talking to, funny enough, because we were talking about this. And, they're trying to bamboozle you with, it's security and you don't know everything. And we're going, well, hold on a minute. You're not dealing with idiots here. You're dealing with generally educated people who are in the industry. Ian's a camera expert. He tried to say something about one of the camera. You wouldn't see this with a camber lens, and I laughed at that.
It's evening. It'd be too dark to film. And I'm like, no, camera bodies have got high ISO these days. Yeah. I was even speaking to some camera guys that were there, and they were saying, we didn't need to take any night vision gear because our camera bodies now are essentially night vision gear. And funnily enough, one had even direct messaged me. I thought we got the police helicopter there completely pitch black at night. And they say, no, you could get it. Plus, the narrative was the drone was lit up with its own lights. So it would have been illuminating itself. So if you did get it in shot, you would get something.
They think they're dealing with idiots, and they don't like it when we push back, that's for sure. And they always fall back to, but it's security. You don't know everything. They don't tell you everything. We go, hold on a minute. They do. They've told the police have told the government what happened, and they didn't have any evidence. So, there's a narrative certainly being pushed on Gatwick, and it's continuing to be even pushed today.
I would say extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, and the burden of proof is on them.
Yes, Your Honour. You see, he'd be terrible in court, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
I've changed the microphone.
There's not a picture. There's not a picture. There's not a single eyewitness outside of airport staff that's come forward in the public and said, I saw a drone. There is no evidence of any sort. So logic would dictate there was no drone. It's that simple.
There's not even an artist's impression.
There must be a rendering. There's always a drone. There's always a rendering. There has to be a rendering. Yep. Chris, I4C2D said, wasn't it raining half the time too?
Yes.
On the first night, it was a horrible night. was a horrible night.
What it said was with the first sighting, and then again, I just don't understand why the investigative press, there isn't anybody out there just going over the narrative. That was supposed to be the first sighting, because I know someone that went out that lived in close to Gatwick, and I think they're within 20 minutes of it, and said, it was absolutely pouring it down, and it was a high wind speed as well. Yep. So it's kind of where you would be lucky, if you wouldn't purposely go out and fly a drone in that weather, because there was a chance that it could fail with the rain, and then the police would have had the evidence. So you just wouldn't go and do it logically. And the only drones that are capable of in the flight rain are the kind of sky range things that the police have. So that does again put it that it's more likely that somebody's misidentified a police drone if there even was a drone. But
we know which side of the thing the media is on anyway, so they're not going to do an investigation. They're going to play to their storyline, and so the last thing they're going to do is try and debunk it.
You just think, though, there's definitely journalists out there that have still got credibility about them and will go after a story.
But there are editors on top of those journalists, and the editors are driven by the bean counters, so they tell the journalists what to write, and if they submit a story that doesn't fit, it doesn't get published.
I think it's more than that. I think it's just there isn't. To be honest, it's just a bit of a sad reflection of education in the country when it comes to technology. I think there just isn't many journalists that have got any technical knowledge, and they just immediately fear something where it's got a technical angle. Because the very fact that we get so many journalists that will misquote heights and speeds and things that drones can go to, and they're unaware themselves, kind of shows they don't really understand the technology. So that's the problem, I think. I think if you had someone that had the knowledge, they might even do it as their own little side project to do some investigation around it. But no one's really compelled. It's technology, it's geeky, and they're happy to just take the narrative that was provided.
I agree with you in terms of technology, because when I was doing the research on that Drone X video, the number of, you would think, legitimate websites, news websites like The Verge and Tom's Hardware, that all gave the Drone X a fabulously good review. And I'm thinking, seriously? These people, they don't know their extremities from their elbow, if that's what they think.
Yeah, well, yes. It's all very subjective, all these things, and we must believe the manufacturer's claims, because they'd never fib, would they?
Sorry to interrupt for a second.
That's right.
One thing it would be good if someone would do, especially some of these drone channels that have got lots of followers, maybe Flight Test or somebody, is why doesn't someone just listen to the evidence that was put forward by the chief and just put that same scenario to the test? Fly a drone, at X 100 meters away, they said it was. Get some proper journalists down with a camera gear, photojournalists, and see what you could get and actually put it to the test.
There you go, iCopter and the others.
I saw that BBC documentary, and you could see that Phantom a long way away than each other.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting, I think, the Register is a website Ian knows, I know, and I've known them for years, absolutely years, and they've always been one to pick up on the more obscure stuff. And I know they are heavily followed within actually the technology industry. Just getting it out from the Register into mainstream media tends to be difficult, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. At least the Register are good for covering drone stories, and the like government stories as well. So the two things tied together quite well. But even for them, it's that they see drones as being quite niche. But yeah, were it not for them, there'd be a lot less stories that are out there that really. I'm surprised some of the journalists don't read and pay attention to that themselves, because they could get little bits that can include in the road. Find out.
If you look at the comments on stories that are published in the Register about drones, and also on Slashdot, which is another techie nerdy site, even within the tech nerd community, there's still, the media has done such a good job of brainwashing people. There's still people say, these drones should be banned. And it's the negative feelings within the wider community is absolutely astounding. And of course, the media play to that, and the regulators play to that, politicians play to it, and we're left on the back foot.
I found it for years. All of these sites that are allegedly tech driven, they're not really, compared to what we class as, building aircraft, that kind of electronics. Most of these tech sites are, this is a new smartwatch, you need to buy this, or this is the new phone. They're not driven by the actual technology that we're involved in and we're used to dealing with. And what we need, we need a website that's dedicated to drone news. That's what we need. Anyone?
Yeah, if only it was. It'd be really good, wouldn't it? It'd be really, really, really good. Yeah, well, they're advertising sites, aren't they? And they that's how they make their money, and that's why I don't make any money. Right, it's absolutely fine. But the thing is, I can sleep at night. That's the primary thing.
UAS hysteria. That's a wonderful catchy.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. That'll be it. And just today, somebody sent me a link to where the whole site's been lifted and been used somewhere else.
Any good stories you can?
I'm doing a lot of work for a lot of other people. It's really good. No, but yeah, we're super niche. We are our own echo chamber here, aren't we? Yeah. The trouble is, we talk and then we have cyclical arguments, and we're always right. But we are our own echo chamber. It's a very, very small market. The whole thing is a very, very small market. It's not the 800 gazillion bajillion dollar market that was predicted to be already. And
Price Waterhouse were wrong. Goodness me.
I think it's funny. I watched back the 1st of October show today, the Skydio show, because obviously with Adam on, and it's interesting. I often like to listen to some of the words from the guys who are heavily involved in the industry in the back end and how they see it. And one of his comments was very interesting, that we're not even at the birth of the industry yet. We're at we're at the beginning of the universe, that tiny speck before this becomes what it is. And we all sit here and think sometimes, things are marching on fast. It's still so small, so niche, and so unaccepted in pretty much all parts of the world other than our own.
But I think perhaps this Mavic Mini is the start of, because I've always said you'd have 6 drones that could fly for 10 minutes in a box and they'd be tiny. Well, I'm wrong there, aren't I? You could have to get yourself an hour's worth of inspection time out of low weight devices. Well, now you can have 2, can't you? Or you can have 6 and you can get an hour and a half. No, 2 hours, 3 hours. What am I talking about? Yeah, 3 hours worth of work out of that little box that you've got, and it's all lightweight and out of potentially outside of regulation. So this could be the start of.
Well, there's 2 things. Yeah, there's 2. Skydio have changed everything in one way. I watched a couple of the reviews again this week, and it is hard not to be blown away how that thing moves through an indoor environment. And it was the Drone U video I think I was watching, and it to watch it move through and the way it avoids is unlike anything else. And if all of that happens, that changes everything for one way completely. Now, it is assisted flight, and that's something I think people haven't quite got their head around yet as well, that you're directing the aircraft more than flying the aircraft is probably the way. You're telling it, I want you to go there, and it's flying itself there around everything. Your forward on your stick isn't saying go from point A to point B. It's go in a straight line. You're telling it to go, from point A to point B. You're not saying go straight. It'll do whatever it has to do to get there. And then you've got the Mavic Mini on the other side of this, which is now going to open up a whole new world. So 2 separate companies, completely independent of each other, seem to have overnight, and none of this stuff happens overnight in reality. It's all 2 years, 3 years down the line, but have completely changed how we're going to be flying in the next 12 months.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think, and that'll make the fear if everything is more usual or something you see all the time, which I do see. I see phantoms over the highways here and around buildings all the time being used by building companies and road workers. So it is becoming pretty standard. But as soon as we see them everywhere, all this fear will go away, perhaps. Or maybe I'm being too optimistic. And Wavy Davey in the comments is right. We're not seeing your award, Ian. Where's your award?
Get your time to thank the Academy. Come on, let's have the speech.
Yeah. But he's absolutely right. There it is.
He's talking about this,
Oh.
I assume.
Yeah, lift it
Well,
up.
there it's not.
Camera.
It's gone. It's gone back now. Yeah, lift it up. There we go. By the power of Grayskull.
Mr. Philip Rose and his people at Profi, CNC, and Hex, extremely kind, far too kind to me, and I was blown away. If I'm honest, I was completely blown away. I got a random message, and I had a picture sent over from the conference that they had last year, and they very kindly just decided to award me something for some of the videos that we've done over the last year. So yeah, absolutely blew me away, to be honest. It really did. You know, it's nice.
Good.
It's nice to get a bit of recognition. As Gary said earlier, none of us do this for money. Who's in there? Who is it?
And there he is.
Is it Grandad?
Most of it, Grandad. Yeah, you got the two there. Hang on, hang on. I can do the same. Here's my one from Nats. Do you remember that? Do you remember that Nats competition that they had?
Is it an A cup? Looks very small.
Oh, there you go. Yes. No, very good. Very good.
If Ash falls out of that, Bruce, I'm going to be concerned.
Yeah.
How much does the Greek earn? I don't know.
Oh, no. He's here all week. That chap's got a very West Country accent, whoever he is. I've been intrigued to know which part of the West Country he's actually from over there in NZ. But anyway, look, we've gone well over time yet again. Did anyone else have any other stories? Anything else?
Quickly, what's the consensus of my chasing the Cessna flight? That kicked up a storm, didn't it, in the comments? Chasing that Cessna down the airfield. I mean, and then when I put the other one up, which showed the helicopter hovering over the DC-3 and everything, oh, no, that's all right. That's no problem.
I did laugh at that because I was watching that and there was all sorts kicking off in that one, wasn't there?
Yeah.
She was a real bun fight. So, yeah.
The only other thing I've seen this week, and actually it's very much, I'm assuming I've missed a rant from Bruce on Drone X. Have I, or is he ranted on that?
No,
yet?
we actually haven't had that rant yet.
No, the Drone X, that's on my RC Model Reviews channel. I busted the scam, the Drone X scam. It's the EA Sheen E58 or whatever it is at twice the price.
It's interesting because there's been a little bit of noise roaming this week about Micro Drone 4.
Yes.
There's been some that people are wanting their money back and they're not being listened to again on Indiegogo. And the Plexi drone thing is still kicking off, and the website is now actually down as well.
How many years ago was Plexi drone? I've forgotten now.
And
Has
next thing you know, Lily drone will be in the same boat.
Yeah, has anyone got their Plexi drone? Because I keep seeing them teasing that someone's got them, and then they're always coming out with a slightly new version of it, thinking, "Well, that's where the money's going." And they just get really, really defensive if anyone ever challenges them.
I followed the Plexi drone very closely, and this one is about as deceiving as it appears to get. All of the others, you can say they didn't do it, they didn't make it. Plexi drone has managed to string people along for close to 3 years. It might even be
more than that.
Yeah.
Let's have a look.
And you know, not
being muted at the same time. The 3DR Solo had come out, and because he was trying. The managing director was even on the Solo group trying to get people to buy it.
And the interesting thing, he shipped arms. He shipped some people arms. People got arms, but they didn't get anything else. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then I think they're asking them for more money, saying, "Oh, give us some more money, and then your order will be completed."
Yeah, they were offering upgrades and things like that, and they were saying, "Before we're going to upgrade the flight controller to have new features. If you give us another $70, we'll put that into your one when it's ready to ship," and stuff like that. Now, they actually posted a post on their Indiegogo site a month ago, but just after now that the website's gone down completely. Now, whilst the people on there don't have any recourse, there were a lot of people with them ordering directly on the website. And whilst most of these companies tend to keep it on these crowdfunding platforms because of the protection they've got, they took an awful lot of money off people outside of that as well. And that's where the real the court cases will come in. But if he's gone,
Far be from it for me to say, but were there a drone news website that actually called it out on the 22nd of November 2015? That's the sort of news website of the drone industry I'd like to read. But yeah,
link in the description.
It seems to be a link in the description. Yeah.
And
the best thing, and it got taken off the internet, and I wish it hadn't. And I mentioned this before, but it was just comedy gold. Was they were going on how smooth the drone could take off on land.
That's right. Yes.
And what they'd done when it came in landing, what they'd actually done is they'd just taken off, rewound the video, and thought they'd get away with it. But what they hadn't realised was there was a fountain in the background, and obviously you saw the water going.
That was going this opposite way. Yeah, I remember that, and everyone ripped them apart on that one. Yeah, it's okay. If we look, we've had what? Lily, Zano, this. You've now got Microdrone 4, which appears to be in trouble. You've got
AirDog thing as well.
For starters, crowdfunding drone schemes don't work. I think that's an absolute given. Yeah. But I think this one has been the more probably dodgy of them all, to say the least.
Yes, and let's face it. At the end of the day, now, what are you going to do to beat that $399 Mavic Mini? What can you bring to the party?
That's the thing. The technology moves so quickly that if you crowdfund something, by the time you get it to market, it's already been superseded.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. The margins on that are just so small. The only way that works is volume, isn't it?
Yeah.
If at all.
Here we are. Here's our man. Man describes being stuck in a Toronto storm. Do you think I can play a video on it?
Probably.
Hang on. Let's see if it will let me share a video. Let's see, because I don't know if you knew about this chap. Chrome tab.
Will we get audio?
Yeah, that's so you probably won't. Well, all right. I'll just post a link. I'll post a link. It's our man, Clever Frere, describing being stuck in a lift and how he nearly died. There he is. That's the man behind the whole thing.
Is it?
Yeah, I'll put the link here.
Behind PlexiDrone itself?
Yeah, that's him. You can't hear the audio, can you?
No.
Look how close his eyes are together.
Look at the way he looks at the camera.
you can watch that in your own time, but he had a claim he got stuck in a lift, and that was him. That wasn't so long ago.
You got to feel for everyone who's put money in, because at the end of the day, people have been ripped off and scammed here, and it isn't good. It isn't good enough. These companies, and it's not acceptable that Indiegogo and any of these other companies get to stand there and walk away. I'm sorry. If they're going to stand up as a platform, then there needs to be. eBay gives you buyer protection. PayPal gives you buyer protection. There needs to be something in place, because they're making money off these schemes.
Yes.
They've made money off them. They've already had their money.
Yeah. If you look at the reality, though, crowdfunding is always going to be a risk. Anyone that puts money into a crowdfunded project has to be prepared to walk away from it when it fails, because the failure rate's incredibly high.
Yeah. But the issue is, all the tech sites push this. If you look at the Zano, that was heavily pushed by which is the big one of the major tech websites announced it as. No, it was the other one. I announced it as Drone of the Year.
Verge.
From Verge. Was it the Verge? Announced it as Product of the Year after seeing it at one trade show where it never flew, never moved, and it was just insanity. Absolutely.
The Verge gave the Drone X a good review too.
Well, if you want to find out a drone that's going to fail, see if it, or drone company, see if it's one of the CES drone picks. They generally fail. If you look at all of those in the past, it's just nonsense. And it's like the drone industry insights thing. You pay to get on your position on the board. So it's all nonsense.
I must have pressed something on LinkedIn, because I keep seeing posts from World Drone Association. anyone know which one this one is? It's almost like it reminds me of the Star Trek Federation logo they've got, which looks like a big world.
Yes, I know the one. I've seen,
and I can't figure out if they're legit or a total scam. I've been trying to work it out.
Oh, just another stand-up group, isn't it, that claims to represent us all whilst trying to make a bit of money. We've seen it all come and go, really. I can't see. Back when Ian's absolutely right. This thing was being promoted back when solar was a thing, just before. We were probably at Phantom 2 then, weren't we, or something like that?
3.
We were at 3, but its proposed specs would have been out of this world, from another planet, and you can see why people went for it.
I had a feeling it was shady straight away, because when he was trying to tap people up directly, I started quizzing him, and I said, "Well, what's the flight controller then?" Because he's going about all it could do. Because I thought, well, this has got to be Arduino. He goes, "No, we developed it all ourselves." I thought,
well, that's normally the clue, isn't it? Yeah,
it's nothing easy to do. So I said, "Well, how many QA staff have you got checking it?" So if he's a director of the company, you would know how many staff you employ, and he couldn't answer those basic questions. So I thought, well, you're being a chancer, really. You're not being honest. And if you can't, there's things you want to keep secret because you don't want to give away the spec. But when you're just avoiding answering any questions, you get to the point of thinking, actually, I think you're just trying it on and you're a bit of a blagger. And it's a shame, because the physical designs, I think really what they had is, obviously they had somebody within their organisation who's very talented for coming up with concepts and building the plastic molds, to put them together to make these nice things that connect and are modular and great ideas. But obviously they didn't have the people they needed to deliver that, or the money.
They certainly put some tooling in. There's no question. They had £2.5 million, I think it was, off the top of my head. Was it 1.7 million, $2.5 million, something like that? Now, obviously, you can get quite a bit of tooling done in China for that, and because obviously they had frames, they weren't 3D printed, they were parts that looked legit. So they've spent a little bit of money, let's say, but you could do that for probably $100,000. And if not a lot less, and it's a lot of money that's disappeared there. An awful lot of money has disappeared.
It was that much?
Yeah.
120.
Yeah.
You can burn for that quite quickly if you're employing technically capable staff in the drone industry, can't you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but on LinkedIn, people have been going on about EHang have been given $100 million in VC funding, and when I said, "Oh, we've had toy drone manufacturers that have been given more than $100 million in VC funding and managed to burn through that and are no longer in the in the space," and people saying, "No, we haven't. That can't be true." So, I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn's great.
It is, and you say, as you say, in reality, 2.2 million isn't going to get them anyway. It's not going to, they wouldn't even get the supply order for the camera sensor for that. Most of these companies put down millions upon millions just to secure stock. So it was never going to be enough money to produce a drone. But it's looking like someone's walked away quite healthily on a quick rich scheme. That's what it looks like, doesn't it? That's what's where we're going wrong.
Yeah.
I see it now. Ponzi drone. That's what we need. Ponzi drone.
Multi-level drones. Multi-level. See what I did there? Yeah. We do need to do that.
But no, I saw it this week. The website's now down, so I think that's a nail in a coffin. They did post a month ago, and now the website's gone. So I suspect they have disappeared.
Sure. No,
it'd be interesting to see if there's not posted on their social media. I'll have a nosy later, but I very much doubt it.
Thing is, he didn't hide himself either. So, he is very well known. So he's not going to be able to hide around the globe at all. At the end of the day, this isn't just a company that's sprung up and we don't know who the guy is. We know who this guy is. So
maybe he was trying to hide in a lift.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe he was. Yeah, no, there's plenty of dodgy people about in this industry. Most of them are here. But no, there are plenty that really are.
I was thinking people like that anyway. They're the kind of people who don't feel the need to hide. They'll be out there and they'll be cocky and they'll be on to the next thing anyway with no shame.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. That's how Bruce has got away with it.
Like Elon Musk. Like Elon Musk.
So people keep saying, yes.
Yeah. You know, I saw quite a few posts from some big YouTube people against him this week. You know, guys who are saying they gotten rid of, you know, the Northrups. If you know the Northrups, they got the big photography channel.
Chelsea
and you know, and they went out and said they've got rid of their Model S, and their exact words on Twitter was they do not trust Elon Musk. You know, and it's.
Well, you know, who knows? Another South African, you see. That's what it is. Right then. So, any other news that has caught anyone's eye before I put the hammer down on this one? No. Nicola, you've been very quiet, Nicola. What have you been building there while we've been doing this?
I'm working on a little battery pack.
Oh, yeah.
That's half of it.
Sub 250.
Yeah, you should be able to find you playing with that.
That's half of it. That's half of it.
What is that for?
Well, nothing that flies yet.
I was going to say, it's your ground tracker, isn't it? You're having a big budget.
No,
it's an electric bike going up that mountain.
It's for a ground-based vehicle, so nothing that this channel would be interested in. But it's a 20S battery, 16P, so quite large.
So is it some kind of
rover?
What?
Is it some kind of rover?
No, it's an electric motorcycle.
Oh, right, okay.
I get it, Nikola Tesla.
Yeah, it's all there.
Yeah.
The clues are all there. All you got to do is just go open your mind and look. The clues are all there.
Indeed.
And when you have to, but is this for your new EV channel?
What?
Didn't you once tell me you're having an electric vehicle channel or something like that?
Yeah.
Well,
this is for one of the things that will be on there. I had to order it without a battery, but I don't mind because I actually get to build one Tesla style. Ironic, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And also, it will be better than the one the Chinese couldn't provide any certificates for. So.
But all the bits for making those big battery packs are out there now, aren't they? All like little holders and things you can get off eBay. So
machine isn't that expensive now, is it? For doing the tags on the top, that you can get the machines fairly easily.
Spot welders.
Yeah. Well, I've got a few around anyway. But the biggest issue with this thing is that the cells are pretty loose in the holder. So now, basically, I've spent the better part of 2 days just wrapping the ends in tape to make them. No, I don't want to do anything that permanent. Come on, but wrapping the ends with just making them a bit larger with tape so they fit snugly in there. But it's taking a lot of time.
Builder's foam.
Build a what?
Builder's foam. Probably don't have it where you are. The spray foam.
No. Like I said, I don't want to make it permanent because if something fails, I need to be able to remove it without destroying the pack.
So that looked like an awful lot of cells there. If you don't mind me asking, what sort of money is that many cells?
Well, this half is 160 and the other half is also 160, so 320 cells in total. And that was around 600 euros.
Wow, not cheap then.
No.
For the cells alone. Well, the battery for the motorcycle from China costs $700.
And what sort of
that was with a crappy BMS and a crappy maybe possibly an okay Chinese build, but with probably crappy Chinese cells. of lower capacity. So, $700 versus 600 euros, but these are brand new LG cells of higher capacity, higher discharge, which is actually more important. And I know I'm using 100% nickel strips, double layers, stuff like that, thicker cables.
What's that, Bruce?
Is this medication, I think?
Genuine LG cells. It says so.
Oh,
Yeah. Made in Taiwan.
genuine LG cells. And were you picking up a radio then, Brucey, as well? What else were you picking up then?
Oh, no, just clearing the bench, as I always do.
Oh, Jumper T16, as recommended by people on this channel, asked a UK supplier about them. UK supplier would have loved to have supplied me with one, but he had a visit from Ofcom, and
you say this because I know it already.
Okay. And apparently, it might be wise to just stick away from the Jumper T16 in the UK at the moment. I think that's the right name.
Is that your radio spectrum people?
Yes.
Yeah. Is it 150 milliwatts?
It's not.
I've no idea. I don't know any more than that.
Legitimately, it's not certified for UK use.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but who cares? Detail.
No, I've got to care because I've got a flyer ID. I've got to care about all these things now.
You didn't say anything about it. As long as you don't get Sarah and Sally flying over Virgil, you'll be fine.
That's right. It goes with the name. These are the people to avoid. Well, obviously, those that knew the right answers, the ones that.
So was he unable to sell it to you then, Gary, or was they already gone? Unable.
What's just as likely is that Free Sky have said worldwide, if you sell Jumper, we won't sell your product.
No, I trust. No.
This one is.
Him.
I know this. I knew this story already, so it was. Yeah, I was well aware of what happened. But yes, I think there's been a bit of kickoff with some of the imported products to all RC type dealers, and it's interesting that they're looking at RC dealers. It's interesting. It's not something they've done before.
It was interesting because a while ago it was mooted that the best way they were going to control FPV and all that sort of stuff was basically just to clamp down on the licensing of the radio transmitters and things rather than try and police people in the field. And I suspect they may do that eventually. DJI wins again.
Yeah. And on that note, it's a good note to end, actually. I think you should probably call it a day because we've been going for an hour 46. So, dear viewer, if you've stuck with us all this time, thank you very much indeed. Don't forget 2100 GMT next week. That's 2100 GMT, Ian. GMT, not local. GMT.
Yes. Next week, I'm at the UK Drone Show.
Oh, okay.
Live streaming.
You should come in live. You should.
Well, it won't be on that time of night, will it? So,
will it? The party's any good?
You can break in. And do
Ian gets all his gear.
Then we could. What we could do is we could have you stealing various things on order. We could buy order various stands. It'd be great. The viewers can select whatever they want.
Yeah, so I am going to the commercial drone show in the UK on Tuesday. I will be having a walk around and I will be driving back to my hotel. So I've got to get back there for 9 o'clock, basically, is what I got to do. But yeah, hopefully we might have. I can't see there being much news from there because there never is, but we'll see.
We just go through your swag bag, mate. The swag bags are always great value.
Yeah. No, you should. It's show and tell for you next Tuesday then.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, guys. Thanks very much. Dear viewer, thanks very much. Be safe in whatever you're doing this week. If you're flying at the weekend and, like me, you haven't got a flyer ID, tut. No. See you again next week, 2100 GMT. Cheers all. Take care. Thanks,
guys.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Number 1.